This video is going to be my second film study look at DeAndre Hopkins' film. I'm going to focus on one game from 2024 where I think it really illustrates his dominance, how he can impact this Ravens offense, how he can help Todd Monken, Lamar Jackson, and the entirety of the Ravens personnel. One thing I have to mention here that I think is important is he'll be around for the offseason. I do not anticipate, I don't know much about DeAndre Hopkins, to be honest with you, but I do not anticipate that he's the type of guy that would only show up at the appointed time for veterans like himself with such a high profile and such a high stature. My presumption, and I could be way off here, is that the Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry impact would influence, encourage someone like that to show up as many times as possible and get familiar with the offense so that he can maximize his own impact in 2025. I want to get to the film as quick as possible. We're going to focus on Kansas City's Week 8 win in overtime against the Tampa Bay Bucks, a game where Hopkins had 8 catches and 1 touchdown. Additional to that, I want to focus on some matchup stuff, and so I will show a film from one game in 2023. Very smooth and tempos things well, but when he needs to turn on fourth gear or fifth gear, he does so. Let's look at the difference in the gears. Immediately getting off as quick as possible, fitting between the 2 second level defenders on the A-gun play action, and then gearing down when he knows he should gear down to make himself available for Patrick Mahomes. Just a nice little quick way to get him the football and incorporate him in the offense. It's an A-gun configuration, and so I'll show that a little bit. The Chiefs use that a lot. Him into the boundary with the tight end and the running back, and it took advantage of, first of all, he's a swift catcher of the football. It's very sharp catch with his hands, but he's also aware of when he should catch the ball with his body to protect himself, to protect the football, or secure it because he's got a little bit more space than maybe the defense wanted to allow him. So I would say he's not just talented with a great catch radius, plays above the rim, but very intelligent and patient, smart, in zone, pretty much all of that. Press man, zone, off man coverage. I would say DeAndre Hopkins looks like a guy that is going to help the Ravens move the football and then score once they get in the red zone. So here's the A-gun configuration that they use a lot in this game. So it's with the tight end, Kelsey, the running back, and Hopkins all into the boundary, as you see there. And oftentimes what they're doing is the tight end is stepping inside, running back downhill with a little play fake. There's not much here. And then what's that do? It just really pulls or holds all these defenders and creates a one-on-one between the receiver, in this case Hopkins, and the corner is Zion McCollum, who's in off coverage, and Mahomes gets the ball out to him quick. Looks pretty similar to a lot of things the Ravens do. Number one, I didn't think our RPOs were very good this year. And there may be data that goes against that. Feel free to link that up if you have any knowledge of it in the comment section. This guy looks like someone who could improve our RPOs because it really stresses the defense on the backside because of his catch radius, because of how sharp he is in catching the football with any type of space that you would consider one-on-one. Same play from the end zone angle, and you'll see what I mean in terms of the tight end, Kelsey, and then the running back, I think it's Hunt, downhill. Not much of a play fake there from Mahomes, so really wouldn't necessarily consider it an RPO. It almost looks like it was either called for Mahomes or he just decided where he was going to go with the football. But they had done this 2 or 3 times prior to this throw, and what I mean is they had same setup, running back, tight end, Hopkins into the boundary. So I think they pretty much knew what coverage they were going to get. And in fact, I'll have one more look at that particular setup later on in the game that'll illustrate Hopkins' underrated ability to break tackles. The point about him being here for the entire offseason, I don't think that can be overstated. It's a huge asset for him and the Ravens. He's not traded here during the middle of the year like with Kansas City. He'll be healthy in the offseason, presumably. I don't think he's going to wait to come here. And here's how I am trying to prove that to you, is that I see evidence that he runs complementary routes if he's asked to. So this is going to be a third down coming up. I think it's a 3rd and 10. And 2 of the routes here, one by Worthy and one by Hopkins, are both what I would consider complement sign with the Texans. So there's Hopkins. And essentially he's going to run like a little bit of a chine out. It looks clunky. But watch the release of Worthy and Watson. They're running through the same seam. this when I see these type of things, especially on third down, and then the second guy through is getting the football, this all tells me that this is completely designed to get him open. And so what I mean by that is Hopkins is holding this second level defender, the strong safety, and then since both of these players are running through the same seam, it almost guarantees the second guy through is going to have more space than you would typically see. And in this case, easy completion for Watson. Like I said, that's on a third down. I think that it's a small piece of evidence, but I think you've got evidence that Hopkins will run complementary routes when he's asked to. I don't see him running a ton of pick routes, meaning he's the picker, he's the guy making the rub. But he's got great hands, he's reliable. I'm not sure you would want to use him as the guy to screen for someone else. I didn't see any instances of that. He can make the play when you need him to, and the best example of that I have found, well, there's so many good ones, but the best one that I'm going to show you from this game at least is this catch in the second quarter on a touchdown drive that I believe is on a 3rd and 8. So that's his initial route stem, the yellow line. And Mahomes is going to be pressured. It's only a 4-man rush by the Bucs. Pocket is kind of collapsed in on him. Very, very similar, if you ask me, to what the Eagles really tried to do, was collapse that pocket, not give him any escape lanes. And Hopkins really has nothing going on at first, and so then he just adjusts or adapts to the play. Talked about that in the first film study video that I did on him. Maybe you don't want this ball thrown if you're a young quarterback, but it's Patrick Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson has that kind of leeway. But I would say really that kind of awareness to see the space that Hopkins is running onto in all of this chaos. I mean, look, he's being hit right here. There's the space that Mahomes is throwing it onto. We've seen Lamar make dozens of plays like this in his NFL career. We'll show you the end zone angle so you can get a little bit more appreciation of how tight the space was. I think DeAndre Hopkins makes the margin for error larger for the Ravens, for Lamar, for Todd Monken. He gives us a wider margin of error. People, kind of said those things over the years about receivers in a general sense. I'm going to be specific. His catch radius, his adaptability, and then his timing on routes where he has to fit an area of the field that opened up that, we weren't necessarily intending to target with the design of the play. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. You can see the pockets collapsed on Mahomes, steps up, looking for some kind of space. We don't have any idea where Hopkins is, just so he's like down here, just off screen for all of us. There's the throw. And that's the type of thing that DeAndre Hopkins has done throughout his career, make ridiculous catches. In fact, the picture that I keep showing in between plays for you guys is a picture where he made a somewhat similar catch against the Packers, and then 2 defenders are, pretty much left in his wake on the ground. Somewhat similar to these plays occur all the time. I said it in our Discord, I think Hopkins is almost like made of a different material. His the way that people bounce off of him or that he impacts tacklers or guys in coverage is just different. I kind of likened it to Henry in the video yesterday. One thing I want to talk about is we brought back Tylan Wallace. I didn't know that. What's not to like at this point about the Ravens offseason from an offensive standpoint? Stanley, Hopkins, Wallace. We've got all the running backs we need, assuming that Keaton Mitchell is healthy. Let me show you his touchdown here against the Bucs. He knows when to catch the football with his hands and when to catch it with his body, and very reliable. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think at one point one year he had over 100 catches with not a single drop. Huge asset for what the Ravens at times had trouble with in the tight red zone. I think he's going to bring a different element. I don't know whether we'll be. I think the Ravens can morph from their power running attack to their spread passing attack or option style concepts. And Hopkins, if you ask me, just being attached to any one of those, lined up out wide to any one of those, is a threat, and he gives us an option to win. He actually had 2 touchdowns in that game. I misspoke a little bit. This one that is coming up is going to be in tight space. I don't think it's a good idea to play off coverage against DeAndre Hopkins. Let's put it that way. He's another guy who can win, if you will, down here in tight space. This is late 4th quarter. The Chiefs are going to take 24-17. Like I said, it's his 2nd touchdown of the game. catches it with his body because he understands, okay, I won here. I got more space than maybe I should. The DB obviously doesn't want to leave this much room in this tight of space. You shouldn't get beat that badly, but just a quick little shake to the outside. Mahomes getting rid of the football really quick. You can see the ball was already on its way right there. I don't want to say easy win for Hopkins, but I feel like he can do that all day. I feel like he can do these things that we've seen here all day long. And the part about knowing how to catch the football, sometimes young guys coming out of college are labeled as body catchers. And if you see a guy catch the ball with his body all the time, that's an accurate label. But there's a time and place to actually do that, to protect yourself. And I think situations like this one, end zone angle, same play, by the way, fourth quarter touchdown against the Bucs. This is the place to do it. Protect yourself, get the ball in there, get into the end zone, and in a manner such that the DB can't recover and get the ball out. If it gets in there tighter into your body, you've already protected it, and the DB has less of a chance to swat or rip it out because you're not catching it with your hands and then pulling it into your body. Hopefully I say that in a way that makes sense. It's certainly not the only time or situation where that would be a real dynamic. Finally, in this game against the Chiefs, one more play, and this isn't the only one that I've got here. I think 4 or 5 breaks tackles better than people want to give him credit for in terms of yards after the catch. There's plenty of athleticism that's still retained, if you ask me. If you find a way to isolate him, and again, the Chiefs did so in this game with that A-gun configuration. So same setup here. Hopkins is spot shadowed up to the top. It's going to be a speed out, and you've got Hopkins, tight end, running back, all into the boundary together. And once again, these guys are working together away from Hopkins, and it just isolates. This time it's a speed out. And not only catches the football, spins off of one DB, spins off another, and they don't bring him down. He's a very strong player with the football in his hands. I don't know what's not to like. I think the Ravens have killed, even though I get it that people aren't going to agree with this statement. From an offensive standpoint, I think the Ravens have killed this offseason. Bringing back Stanley to solidify the offensive line, getting another high-level receiver to. We've got the best 2 receivers that we've had in a long time in Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, and now we've added another guy who can still play. I don't know what's not to like. His one-on-one ability out in space, I just kind of highlighted it in that last play against the Chiefs. I'm going to do so here a little bit. I got to go back in order to do so, however. So I'm going to use some film from a game against the Colts in 2023. Why did I pick that game? Well, I really like Julius Brents. Okay, some of you guys, Ravens fans, may remember him. He's a guy who I think forced a fumble in the Colts 2023 win when he was a rookie down in Baltimore, I think week 3. So he's matched up against Brents multiple times in this game in one-on-one situations. Not exactly on this play, however. Brents is actually to the top side. I just love this play. Out to the right sideline, quarterback kind of flowing outside. Clean win for Hopkins. These are the types of plays, of throws that, it just expands the offense, in my opinion. It just gives us more options to attack with Henry, Lamar, Keaton Mitchell, Justice Hill. I'm starting in the backfield intentionally, and then moving to the tight ends inside out, to the receivers, to all the way to the sideline now. I just think we've got more options with this offense than really we've ever had. I can't think of still today, the next day after the signing, I can't think of another offense in Baltimore history that has approached this one in terms of the depth of what we're able to do and also the width of how we're able to attack. DeAndre Hopkins just makes us more versatile. If we create play space for him, he can be a weapon. Couple of plays here that this one's actually I would call cheap shit, and everyone does these types of things. I kind of don't know why we don't. We tend to play. We don't do a ton of pick or rub concepts. And in this case, Hopkins is in the backfield on a 3rd and 6 in that same game against the Colts. Catching the ball in tight space doesn't bother him. He's nonplussed. He's just reliable, and nothing seems to bother him. I will give you the end zone angle of this play. Pretty poor reaction, I think, by Zaire Franklin, inside linebacker for the Colts. Very talented physical linebacker, but I think has some difficulties in coverage, and that's kind of an example of that. I'll give you the same play from the end zone angle. and there's Hopkins spot shadowed. He's going to, cross the face of, I think it's EJ Speed. Franklin goes underneath, and Tannehill had read it. Tight space, tight windows, contested catches, situations where there's less room, and certainly, like, if you're in the stands watching the game, you're like, how did he catch that? Didn't look like much room. And sometimes you watch the end zone angle or the all-22, like, okay, there's a little bit more room, but it's still contested. It's still people hanging all over him. None of that shit bothers DeAndre Hopkins at all. I love the signing. The more and more film that I watch. A couple of more things to mention here, and then I'll get to a one-on-one rep against Julius Brents that shows his physicality and ability to play through contact. I think giving him a free release is a bad idea. Whether it's man, whether it's zone, in this case it's an over concept, but his tempo is oftentimes perfect, meaning he's able to get over the top of the second level here. It's wide open for him. Tannehill throws the football over the linebacker level. He's a big play guy. I don't think he's going to be a big play guy. I don't know that he's going to have those 8-catch games for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns because we have so many other players who need the football and can make plays. I think we've aced this offseason from an offensive standpoint. Still would like to see us address offensive line in the draft along with corner and safety. I guess the Ravens had to make a decision, it sounds like, between Tylan Wallace and Ardarius Washington. And because it sounds like to me the progression of it, as soon as they did not offer the tender on Ardarius Washington, then we signed Tylan Wallace later last night. And I could be wrong with my understanding there, but that seems to be the way that it works out. Final play here. This is Hopkins one-on-one against Brents. Some type of press man coverage. It's a second down. And you can see that the entanglement, the hand fighting, Brents is a big physical guy. Hopkins is able to maintain his balance, play through it, and then make the catch when the ball arrives, despite Brents being there right at the catch point to challenge it. I think we've got just another weapon that's ready to go for this Ravens team. And one of the first points I made in this video where I said I think it's a big asset to have him in camp early. To me, that's a large point because he's going to be able to get familiar with the offense. And as a veteran, a guy who's been around, a guy who's made a ton of plays for multiple different teams at this point, to me, it's only going to make him better and make us better. You can see the let me get rid of that. My apologies. New program, like I said, in a couple of videos, and I'm trying to learn how to navigate it. He doesn't seem to be bothered by contact at all. I call it contact balance, play strength, whatever you want to call it. This is a guy who is going to be there in tough situations, meaning he's being challenged. Essentially, to use a basketball analogy, he's a player who can make jumpers with the shot clock winding down. I've made this reference before with other players, so I feel bad utilizing this reference again. Some of you may know this one's coming. From an NBA standpoint, he almost reminds me of Joe Johnson, someone who, with the shot clock winding down, even if as he got older, could still make those big shots in big moments, maybe to end the game. That's what DeAndre Hopkins seems like to me. I get it. The Anquan Bolden comparison probably is a better one. Older receiver who's made plays specifically in the red zone with a great catch radius and physical. All of that fits for me. I like basketball references because of my background. Welcome to let me know what you think of that reference there, or comparison, I should say. And then any of the film that I use to try to break down and talk about how much I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to help this offense. And really, it's obscene what they were able to produce in 2024 with at least one hole on the offensive line, generally 2 in some cases. And if we can improve the interior offensive line after adding a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, getting Keaton Mitchell back healthy for 2025, it's borderline unfair what the Ravens are going to be able to do offensively, in my opinion. And DeAndre Hopkins only just really adds to that. You're welcome to let me know what you think of that thought or any of the film that I used to break down DeAndre Hopkins' ability as we go into 2025, just before the draft. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this film study look at DeAndre Hopkins, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.